Now welcome to another lightning response video. This time we got a question from Paul McSoul, who asked, "Hey Thor, I really enjoyed your discussion of Jedi and morality the other day. Going a bit deeper, do you believe Jedi take a deontological view of ethics? That is each single action noble or ignoble regardless of outcome? This focuses on the moment to moment and argues the ends never justify the means. Or would the Jedi compromise in the moment to achieve a better end result for all? Or would that compromise be unacceptable even if the refusal to do so guaranteed a worse outcome? I hope that all made sense. Just curious what your take would be. Thanks as ever for your honest takes on all this stuff." Okay, so first of all, I love this question. I always appreciate a good Jedi question, and believe it or not, this has recently been a topic of interest of mine because I'm writing an episode of my Way of the Jedi series that is more or less going to tackle this. And for the record, the second episode of that series, for those who saw the first one, is well underway and should be up soonish. The art and score are being worked on now. And if you haven't seen it, please do consider giving it a watch. I will try to remember to put a link to it in the comments below. It is a fan fiction series that I started. And as the name kind of implies, it focuses on the Jedi and their ways, though there is much more to it than just that. But anyway, getting to the question, I would say that they don't take a deontological view or approach. I mean, they seem to, or I think they try to most of the time. Most of the time in an everyday situation, they're going to try to do what is right in the moment, I think, and to follow a set of rules or their Jedi code. You could even start to make the argument that beholdening themselves to their Jedi code led to some of the problems that we see in the prequels. But either way, they're always going to try to, shall we say, do what would be considered right and just, again, in the moment, given any normal situation, more or less. However, that's not always going to work, especially when facing the dark side or a dark side user who, as I always say, they are the embodiment of selfishness. They are so full of themselves that they have no moral compass and do whatever to get anything and everything they want. And thus I think they would gladly manipulate them or manipulate a Jedi who was purely a deontologist or take advantage of their inability to ever do something that is perhaps morally questionable in order to stop them, in order to stop a Sith from doing what they're doing for the greater good. Obi-Wan saying to Anakin in Revenge of the Sith that I will do what I must is Obi-Wan, I think, kind of acknowledging that me coming here to try and kill you could certainly be construed as wrong, especially again from a deontological viewpoint where the action itself is more important than the consequence or result of the action. But he knows Anakin has to be stopped at pretty much any cost, or a lot of people are going to suffer and die in the long run. So again, he's going to do what he must here. And this is all one of the reasons, I'm going to bring it up again, but it's one of the reasons I love Andor so very much, even though no, there are no Jedi in there. It tackles this question or a similar one. It asks the impossible question of, where is the line for good when fighting literal evil? What are you willing to do to stop that which has no self-imposed limits when it comes to attaining or holding on to power, when it has no morals at all? To me, that's the reason why Andor is Star Wars, because it tackles this very hard question, which is very much a Star Wars question. Either way, I think the Jedi using mind tricks is maybe the most shady thing that they do and wouldn't fit too well, again, with a deontological approach to things. It quite literally takes away the choice or free will of an individual. And I always talk about how Star Wars is about choices, but the Jedi will sometimes take that choice away from people and can even do great harm to someone in the long run that they've mind tricked. I mean, the stormtrooper who Obi-Wan mind-tricked in A New Hope, the one who will let them go, what do you think happens to him in the long run? What happens if Vader finds out he stopped Kenobi and Luke and just said, move along? Think Vader's going to care he fell victim to a mind trick? Probably not. And so there's a really good chance that Obi-Wan got that stormtrooper killed, but considering Luke goes on to basically save the galaxy by blowing up the Death Star and doing a bunch of other really good things, it certainly feels like the ends justify the means here. It feels more like Jedi follow consequentialism, where they believe what matters most when it comes to their actions are the end results, not so much the action itself or how they get there. Though that's not to say I think a Jedi would be willing to do literally anything for the greater good, but I do think they always weigh their options very carefully, as we all probably should. And at times they'll bend their morals to do something that will produce a result that benefits the greater good in the long run, but in the short term feels sketchy. Though, of course, the problem with that is usually you can't know for certain what the end result of your actions is going to be. Even if you have the best of intentions and you do something that will almost certainly be guaranteed to produce a better result than whatever questionable act you may have had to perform, you can't know with absolute certainty that something better will come of it. Unless that is, you're a Jedi being guided by the will of the Force. Then you can know with much, much greater certainty, maybe not 100% certainty, that something good will come from what you're doing, something better than the action, essentially. And that is because the Force is whispering to them through the midichlorians, maybe not what exactly to do, but what needs to be done in order to bring about balance, which is a state of the Force, or the galaxy, or life itself, that is the most beneficial for everyone. Balance isn't equal parts dark and light, or anything even close to that. It is, as I always say, it's harmony. It's a system working as intended. It is a symbiotic relationship that is mutually beneficial for all on a galactic scale, basically. And I dare say a Jedi's intuition, or them trusting their feelings and doing what feels right in the moment, even if it might be questionable morally sometimes, is simply that will trying to guide them listening to and taking action based on what they're hearing from the Force, even if they're not literally hearing the Force saying anything to them. They're just feeling it, a gut feeling. Though what's interesting about that, and I don't want to get too far off topic here or turn this into an hour-long video of me rambling on and on about the Force. Maybe I'll make one of those someday. But I don't want to go too far off topic here, and that said, despite there being a light side and a dark side of the Force, though originally I think Lucas just had the Force and then the dark side and kind of changed his mind. But either way, I don't think the Force itself necessarily sees things in terms of good or evil, or actions being good or evil. I think it sees balance and nothing else. I think it seeks that at whatever cost it has to, not thinking to itself this is good or evil, if it even thinks at all, which I don't think it does. I think it just acts on instinct, basically, or an inherent desire to be balanced. But anyway, I don't think the Force thinks about or considers consequences as it seeks out the balance or directs Jedi, again, through whispering to them through the midichlorians. I think it purely sees end results or possibilities or the best path to the best possibility, considering, yes, the future is always in motion. In other words, I don't know that the Force is trying to plot out the best way for an optimal positive effect for the galaxy or for the balance that also has the least amount of negatives or suffering for people. It's just aiming for the best possible result, which is where maybe the Jedi actually come in. I think they maybe give the Force a sort of conscience, if you will, instead of just seeing, again, things in pure black and white, instead of seeing things in terms of this leads to balance and this doesn't. The Force functioning through the Jedi allows the Jedi to be compassionate and seek the best result with the least amount of harm along the way. Yes, they will certainly still do what they must from time to time, but perhaps they sometimes find a path to balance that isn't as harsh as maybe the Force would be okay with, if any of that makes sense. Basically, I think the Jedi get, again, a gut feeling about what needs to be done, and more often than not, they simply trust that gut feeling and they act, believing that the Force knows what is best, and that, in the long run, they'll sort of be guaranteed the best possible result for trusting in the Force. Yet at times, a Jedi might go, hold up, that's pretty extreme. Sure, it might lead to balance in the long run, it might have a greater positive result in the end, but short term it hurts and affects a lot of people. So let's see what we can maybe do instead of that. Let's find another way to the same result. Again, I think maybe the Jedi give a sort of moral compass to the Force. They can decide that, yeah, this would be a good result in the long run, but we just can't go that way. We have to find another way. I could be dead wrong about that. That's just kind of how I feel about it. That's my interpretation. This is all my interpretation. So now it is your turn to take to the comments below and give me yours. What do you think about all this? Do Jedi believe the ends justify the means, or don't they? Or you can always ask a question for a future lightning response video. All you got to do, you start your comment off with "Hey Thor," ask your question. I try to answer it in a future video, but whatever the case may be, leave those comments below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.